Every year, highly profitable multi-billion-dollar corporations attempt to cross international borders, and very often they fail catastrophically. Corporate growth does not happen by accident. To increase revenue, a firm has to purposefully cross its existing geographical boundaries or push into entirely new product sectors. This chart shows Igor Ansoff's foundational map for categorizing these different growth trajectories. The safest approach is market penetration, selling more of the exact same products to your current customer base. But if a company wants to grow beyond its current borders, it uses market development. This is the strategy of taking a proven product and launching it into a completely new geography. You can contrast that with product development, where you sell brand new offerings to the market you already dominate. Market development offers immense revenue potential, but it introduces a dense matrix of friction. Corporate instinct is useless here. To survive market entry, executives have to treat expansion as an engineering problem. You have to isolate the variables, gather objective market research, and calculate the odds of success. The primary hurdle in international expansion is rarely physical distance. The actual friction comes from the distance between cultures and operational systems. This table breaks down Penkash Gamawat's CAGE framework, the standard diagnostic tool for measuring friction. The C stands for cultural distance. Societal norms and language dictate business habits. In China, for example, there is a strong expectation to conduct negotiations socially, over dinner or golf. A Western executive who declines a dinner invitation to protect their personal time might immediately lose a multi-million-dollar contract simply because they failed to read the cultural geometry of the deal. The A is administrative and political distance. Expansion is much smoother when the home and target countries share currencies, legal structures, or historical ties. This explains why companies in the United States and the British Commonwealth frequently invest heavily in each other's economies. The administrative foundations are highly compatible. The G is geographical distance, accounting for physical proximity, transport infrastructure, and climate. Finally, the E stands for economic distance. Disparities in wealth dictate whether a local population can afford Western prices. You see the clash of these cultural and economic forces when Western icons are placed directly into rapidly evolving international environments. Once a company quantifies these 4 points of friction, it has to decide how to push through them. It has to select an entry mode. An entry mode is the specific legal and structural footprint a company establishes in a target country. We can map these modes on a continuum. If you want higher control over your brand, you accept higher risk. On the far left is exporting. You manufacture in your home country and ship the products over, requiring zero investment in local offices. The downside is distance. Lead times stretch out, and you surrender control of your customer experience to local distributors who are not on your payroll. Moving up the risk scale, you establish a sales office. You create a legal entity and hire direct salespeople, building far stronger local credibility. But a sales office operates on a thin footprint. It lacks the operational and technical support required to solve complex customer problems on the ground. Further right is the joint venture. You purchase shares in a local firm or start a shared company to leverage their existing market knowledge.
However, if your ownership stake is below 50%, exerting control is difficult. Joint ventures are expensive and routinely take 5 years to turn profit. At the peak of control and risk is the WFOE, the wholly foreign-owned enterprise. The home headquarters owns the entire operation, securing maximum credibility and total authority over the product. Choosing a WFOE requires massive capital. That investment is only justifiable if your market sizing data is flawless. When a company gets its market research wrong, the result is the literal destruction of millions of dollars in corporate assets. To prevent that collapse, strategists do not look at a single top-line market number. They filter the audience into 3 specific actionable tiers. This diagram maps the layers. The largest circle is the total available market, or TAM. It represents the total annual sales volume of all similar products in that country. TAM is largely a vanity metric. It counts millions of consumers who will never actually encounter your specific sales channel. Inside that is the SAM, the serviceable available market. This is the portion of the TAM you can physically reach with your existing distribution network. For example, coffee sold in cups through independent cafes is one SAM. Packaged coffee sold on supermarket shelves is a completely different SAM, even though both exist inside the total coffee market. The final filter is the target segment. This is the exact sliver of the SAM that is willing and able to pay your specific price. In a developing economy like China, the TAM might be worth billions of dollars. But if only 5% of that population can afford Western premium pricing, your target segment is drastically smaller. Researchers calculate these tiers using top-down macro reports, demand-side consumer surveys, and supply-side competitor data. This sizing funnel provides the proof. It determines whether building a wholly foreign-owned enterprise is a strategic masterstroke or an expensive miscalculation. Once the revenue reward is accurately sized, the firm has to scan the immediate landscape for external threats. This is Michael Porter, whose 5 forces framework is the standard for assessing market hostility. It measures current competitive rivalry, the threat of new entrants, and the leverage held by buyers and suppliers. Strategists combine that with PESTLE, a macro-environmental checklist that scans the political, economic, sociocultural, technological, legislative, and environmental landscape. PESTLE identifies hidden traps. A market might have a massive target segment, but an incoming legislative shift could suddenly render your product illegal. This matrix is the SWOT framework. It synthesizes those external opportunities and threats with the company's internal strengths and weaknesses. These rigorous frameworks act as the final logic gates. If a multi-million-dollar expansion plan cannot survive this stress test, the project dies. The entire workflow follows a strict logical sequence. The corporate ambition for growth triggers the initial push for expansion. That ambition immediately collides with the 4 dimensions of cage resistance: culture, administration, geography, and economics. Look at this schematic. To penetrate those barriers, executives choose an entry mode. Whether they rely on low-risk exporting or build a high-control WFOE depends entirely on the precise size of their target segment. By systematically applying objective market research, international expansion ceases to be a reckless gamble. It becomes a calculated, highly engineered vector for corporate growth.